everybody. Fatherhood Connections, one-to-one conversations. This is your host, John Miles. Hey, my guest today, I met a few weeks ago at a National NAMI event here in Michigan, and we had a couple conversations. Because we love the network, and he indicated he had written a book, and I love purchasing books. I got to keep up on the literature and the reading. So he said, "Hey, when you read the book, give me honest opinion." And I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So on one of the breaks, I decided to take a little time and go into the intro of the book. And let me tell you, the intro blew me away. I mean, it was like, it was honest, captivating, detailed, and I was like, wow, this guy, I really have to try to get an interview with, And so we exchanged information, sent him an email, and say, hey, do you have time, your availability, could you probably pop in for a one-to-one conversation piece? And he agreed. So, I was really taken back in regards to his writings and things he was talking about. So the gentleman that I bring to you today, he's the executive director of Broken People, LLC, and the author of Broken Like Me. And the conversation piece within this book is a subject that we as men, we really don't talk about and discuss openly, and we should. The topic, mental health. So, without further ado, the author himself, Joseph Reid. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, it's great. I loved the opportunity to sit next to you. So we met each other. I was just walking around looking at all the different tables, and I just sat down right next to you on the ground. And it's interesting, I got up and I was walking around and like, Joe, did you drop a stone?
Right.
Next to your table? And it was just like, it was all history from there. Like we just couldn't stop talking to each other. So that was great to run across a guy like yourself there and just connect. That's what I'm passionate about. So cool, man. Thanks for having me on. It's such an honor to be here. Fatherhood has been a goal of my life. It's been a passion of mine since I was a kid. Okay. So yeah, I love what you're doing. And man, I love you too. So
hey, love you back, brother. And that's one of the things that we as men have to embrace, when we reach out and develop a friendship, and a relationship. And we see the hard work that we do. It might come from different ends, but to appreciate each other's works is and the uplift and uphold that is fantastic. So like I said, I haven't finished the book, but you described this book as a toolkit for mending broken people. So even though like that I've started it, just to let people know what really led you to write this book.
Yeah, great question. First of all, I never wanted to write a book. I hate books. I've hated books by pretty much up until college. When I had to read my first book to pass, and it was in my young adult years where they started to recognize and diagnose my mental illness, and through years and years of therapy, I started developing these ways of living that just worked for me. Like I'd go in a therapist, they'd say, do X, Y, and Z. And I'd be like, yeah, that's a good idea, but I need to somehow formulate it to fit my life. So I'd turn that X, Y, and Z into ABC and make it work for me. Oh, did I just rhyme? Yeah. All right. Never mind. So I was just living, just doing some things that made the everyday possible, and making friends. And then my good friend, my worship pastor, Nathan, he actually attempted suicide 3 times, and on his third try, he succeeded. And it was at that point that I just got really pissed off, brother. And I just, I was at a cheese factory pulling out of there in my FedEx truck, hung up the phone when I got the news, and then like God like struck me with lightning, like, hey Joe, this is what you're gonna do with the rest of your life. And from that point, I just started writing. And I just started writing, I think I had like 100 pages of a rough draft written within a couple of weeks, and just all these ideas. Of course, it took 4 years to write the book, but that's how I got started. Was this idea of when tragedy and passion collide, you get your purpose, and that's what happened with me. The tragedy and my passion for my own mental health, and for now the mental health of people all over the world. That's a huge deal.
Wow, wow. We when it comes to our body, we may have like a little nagging injury. So we know as it increases, like, okay, I need to go and get this checked out. Or if we're starting to sniffle, we catch a cold, and then it winds up elevating to the flu or something like that. We know those things, and we know how to try to take care of it. But when it comes down to mental health, it's something that, for some reason, it may appear to sneak up on you. But when did you start like seeing signs, and how long did it take before you was like, you know what, something's not right?
Well, I remember sitting and talking with my wife when we started dating. I'm like, I want you to know that you're marrying a crazy person. When I didn't know about mental illness per se. I just knew that I had major struggles. And it wasn't until my wife kind of just like, hey, you have a mental illness, you need to go get help, that she kind of really gave me a fork in the road decision opportunity to get better or get out, kind of a thing. She didn't word it like that, but she really put me in a position of, hey, to realize that there's something going on and there's help for it. So her really pointing it out for me, the way I think, the struggles that I deal with every day, I mean, that's my common struggle. Like for me, that's the normal. And I remember talking to a doctor, probably 30 years ago, telling him about, the constant thoughts I have in my head of self-destruction and worthlessness. And I said, and he said to me, he's like, that's not how everybody thinks. In fact, that's not even a normal way to think. I'm like, what, you don't think that way? He's like, no, most people don't. I'm like, are you serious? Because this is like my every moment of every day. And that was really an eye-opener for me. So yeah, it was my wife was a huge influential. And my second grade teacher, realized something was going on and talked to my parents. But back in, that's 82, there wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of like mental health treatment, aside from, the asylums or growing up in a church, getting the demons cast out of you or whatever. That's what we did.
Wow.
Now it's a whole different story, a whole different ball game, with a lot of great tools and a lot of balance to how these things are treated.
Right. And that's one of the things that I've noticed throughout the pages. You bring up your strength in your religious belief, and also in regards to having those friendships, those positive friendships around you. How have you found, well, one, in regards to your religious belief, were they always there and present, or did your really soul searching finally came out to it like, you know what, things not right, and I need to either create a space where I can focus, and that focus came through religion, or how did the religion enter into your life and help guide you?
Man, you ask really smart questions. That's pretty amazing.
I'm learning. Hey.
That's a great question. I grew up in the Pentecostal church. My dad was did some ministry and all of that, and very traditional Pentecostal. In Lincoln Park, which is over your way a little bit.
Mm.
And that was just my environment growing up. But during my junior high school years, my passion was always to learn more about God and to please him, because I thought he was going to squish me if I didn't. It wasn't until my first hospitalization in 2002 where I began to question why I believed what I believed. So I got a hold of the Quran. I started asking really tough questions about why I am who I am, what is religion, and what does its function in my life. And then I began to solidify my own faith in God. And it was upon the death of my friend where I just let that explode into this person that now no longer is so focused on what people think about what I believe, as much as just me trying to help the people around me and faithfully love God the best I know how. And the thing is, like, I don't know that there's a God, but I believe there is, and in my life he's been faithful, and if it's not that, then that's fine. But I'm trying to live faithfully and love others the best that I can with what I know. And as soon as I find out if it's not true, I will continue to love others. I'll continue to love you the best that I can. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I really sense that God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus are directing and guiding me towards truth in life, and I'm trying to do my best to be faithful with that. And I stumble, man. It's a daily thing, and trying to balance, medication and healthy eating and exercise, and praying about this stuff. Like, it's this thing that we're doing about mental health. It's a dance. It's a complicated dance, and there needs to be balance. When you dance, you're going to fall on your ass, and you're not, and you're going to look stupid.
Right.
So I believe in a gracious God. So hopefully, I don't like taking medication, but it's what I do. My wife says I'm better. I hate it, but my wife says I'm better when I do it, so I trust her. Yeah, it's all of these things coming together, and I believe that Jesus is a huge part of that in my life.
Right. And see that, like you said, that trust and having those people you can trust in.
Yes.
We've all think throughout our lives, from kids growing up, it may have started off as, that's my friend because they like me,
Yeah.
for who I am. But as we grow older, in certain spaces, we need those true friends who can be up and honest with you. And I think in the beginning of your book, you speak about in regards to how people were really open and honest, like, hey, you're not right, really, and when it comes from the ones that you love, that's really when it becomes a gut check, where, like, if they're telling me, I gotta do something, I really do. The most recent email you sent me in regards to the letter your daughter wrote, that was totally awesome. At her age, and I'm going to just give a little bit of it, and then you can fill it in from the rest from there. But for her to recognize not only the issues she's having with herself, and knowing that she's seen it reflecting within you, but is able, instead of saying blame, I messed up because you're messed up, she was able to obtain, like, my dad is my strength, because I know what he's going through. And I've seen, in regards to the stuff that he's taken to continue to get better, or at least to maintain. And here I am, and I'm like, oh, I'm going through with with most kids, the grown up like, I'm jacked up and it's because you're jacked up, so I'm gonna have a jacked up life. But she totally flipped it to use it as a strength. So tell me a little bit about that letter that, she had to do.
Yeah,
How
it's
you felt.
interesting because she had just been on she and I had did a panel discussion with the Clubhouse International. It's a local drop-in center that are found all over the world for people with both developmental disabilities and mental illness, just to go and hang out and find community. And she wrote that right after that panel discussion where we were just talking about, and there were several other people involved in it, but we were just talking about our experiences as a father and daughter. And make no mistake, she has been to the place, when she was younger, where she blamed me for everything and hated me, and I probably have one of my 4 kids there right now, at least one. But the thing is, as a dad, it's always been my passion and my goal to unconditionally love, no matter how you treat me. And it's not just about my kids, it's about you, it's about the person listening here. No doesn't matter how you treat me, I'm not going to react to that. I'm going to respond with love. And I think, and I hope that will always lead to redemption in the terms of our relationship. And my daughter struggles. She's never been to the hospital like I have. I've been in the hospital 4 times, and thankfully she hasn't. And I can look at that and say, maybe some of the things I've learned to do and the ways I've learned to communicate has been helpful to her. None of my other my boys have both been hospitalized, but my other daughter has not. And as I continue to build my relationship with my boys, I hope to be able to provide them with the tools to make it, man. But as I'm sure you're aware, just leaving that legacy, it's not about making $1 million. It's not about selling another book. It's about treating that person right in front of you with respect and honor, regardless of who they are, what they look like, what age they are. It's like, you and I, we're in this together. We're on the same level. Age doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. And you're a different age. You got stuff to learn, but it doesn't mean it's a one-sided street.
Right. Exactly. You answered the question that I was going to ask later on in regards to what you consider to leave as a legacy, but you've already presented that.
I knew you were going there, man. I had it right here. I knew it.
You should have it right there.
Yeah.
Right. But no. But I remember when we were talking at the event, and you had a nervousness in regards to your public speaking, and you did well.
I didn't understand
to be able to. I love artificial intelligence that asks things without even being turned on. But I know you were saying earlier in regards to how long it took for you to write the book, and you didn't even want to write the book because, you didn't like books at the beginning.
Yeah.
So were you always, or were you initially comfortable or uncomfortable in regards to doing the public speaking portion? And really, when it comes to talking about your own, I would say, failures sometimes, that's another difficult thing for us to talk about. How did the public speaking, just evolve within you?
Yeah, so I've been doing public speaking on this topic for a year. We just celebrated a year of it. And, I don't know how visible, you were able to see me and how nervous I was. I don't know, could you see me being nervous, or was you just listening to me telling you I was nervous?
Listen to you, but I did notice some things, but you worked your way through it.
Yeah, so every time I get up there to speak, I'm nervous as heck. And one of the things that is quite hilarious, but also is quite troubling, is the fact that I used to be a police officer. And my first speaking gig was at a police academy here in West Michigan. And when they called me to speak about my mental health experience, the people that asked me to speak didn't know that I had been a police officer. Now here's the kicker. I was only a police officer for a week.
Mm.
So when I went in there to talk to those cadets, those recruits and I've since done 12 or 13 different law enforcement trainings all over the state. To tell them that experience is entirely embarrassing. But what that does for me, because I have the support system to allow myself to be a little bit embarrassed, to allow myself to be a little bit nervous, because I think that lends authenticity to what I do. I don't ever want that to go away, because I don't want to ever come into the room and think I'm the man, or that I have what you need. Like, I mean, the way I view myself and what I do is like, I'm all in the hands of God, and the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And I'm just there to be real and leave it all on the table, because we don't know what's going to happen when we walk out those doors. So I just try to be honest and real, and I try to bring my personality into it. And yeah, man. So telling officers, hey, I was a police officer for a week, like, that's embarrassing. But I think that, and there's a bigger story to that. I don't actually get into that in the book.
Right.
Maybe part 2, I don't know, but there's something that shakes people up when you can be that level of vulnerable. Because I have a safety net. I have people to support me. When I talk about, erectile dysfunction, come on, if you're a father, you're going to face it sometime. Like, and especially if you're taking antidepressants, you're going to deal with that.
Yeah.
And we can hide all we want, but that's a huge issue, or a tiny issue.
Depending on how you look.
It depends how you look at it, but don't be looking at mine. Don't be looking at mine. Yeah. So, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I just go out there and I just try to be Joe Reid. That's all I got, man. And it's interesting because presenting is such a difficult thing, but I've done a lot of podcasts like this. Right. And the way I set up my presentation is, what would a podcaster ask me? And then I go in there and I make that a slide. Like, here's the question I think they would ask. How would I answer that? That's my presentation. Just treat it like a podcast, because, it's kind of funny. I think I showed you this. My notes are all in like Sharpie marker on a paper, because my brain just shuts down because I get so nervous. But then when I get in the flow and I see that you were in there and people I trust and feel comfortable with, and we are all kind of tracking together, and we're having this what I feel like is a conversation, and we're all getting lost in this subject together. It's like, man, I'm like high. I was sweating so much when I was talking to you, because it was so much fun just being there with you and just sharing my heart and sharing my struggles. And one of the biggest fears I have is the fear of embellishing. Like, I want to make sure that when I'm talking to you, everything I'm saying, and for authors, this is a big deal. A lot of authors say, well, I can embellish on a story to bring the point home. And I don't want to be that way. Like, that sets you up for failure. If I tell you something that's not true just to make myself look good or make the situation look better, how can you live up to that standard? And I think that happens a lot of times in our pulpits. I think that happens with our teachers. And we need people that are real, able to tell real stories in an authentic way, that are up in front of us, telling us more about how we should live, as opposed to people that can't live it, who tell us to live it, but don't demonstrate it themselves. It all looks great up on the stage, but man, I hope I don't give that perspective that, oh, Joe's got it together. Joe loses his
You great. I mean, really, in your presentation, you made it relatable. I mean, I know we've both been to a number of conferences and conventions, and you look at presentations, and there are, the numbers, the percentages, and you're like, okay, how does that relate to that everyday dad that comes in, and really he wants to know that, I'm coming in to see somebody speak which I don't feel comfortable in regards to speaking, and they're going to tell me about a success story that they've had, and I don't feel successful.
Yep.
How is it, you did a great job in making it relatable enough to keep us in, no matter where you was going in that presentation, you brought it all the way back in and let you know that one, I'm going through my own struggle and I'm telling you probably my story.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you information that supported me and hopefully it'll support you.
Well, dude, let's just make this down to black and white, okay? So I'm a white middle class guy living in Grand Rapids. You're a black man living in East Michigan, and it's so easy to look at the things that make us different, but they're so much alike. And we have these diversities in terms of these adversities, I should say, in terms of politics and in terms of prejudices that we have. If we would just talk about our real struggles, talk about our real victories, talk about our real thoughts in a vulnerable way, then I think we could get a heck of a lot long better than what we are. And we'd have a lot less problems out there, things that are separating us. But you and I, man, although I don't have your story, and although our struggles are different, I don't have the story or the struggle of a black man like yourself. But I can learn from you. And you can learn from me, and we could bless each other. And it's a two-way street. We got to learn to listen. And I think it's so significant. I think it's really insignificant when people say things like, I don't see color. And that's a problem, because if you don't see who you are and you don't see who I am, like, my color is part of me. It's part of my story. It's what people see when they first see me. Like, that's a real thing. And it's beautiful. So you better see my color. You better see your color, because that color has a history behind it. It has a struggle behind it. And it's scary to talk about that, especially from a white man's perspective. I don't got those things, and I got my own things. And man, I just, just sitting here talking to you, man, we got so much more in common than not, except for the hair.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the hair. But, mine's eventually, it's going to be there.
Don't worry, and you'll enjoy it when it does,
Yeah.
But you know what? You hit on something that really is really right on point. We tend to look at so much of the differences.
Yes.
And use that as not being able to relate. And say, hey, you know what? We go through some similar things, and I should be able to have that conversation. And the key thing is if there's a topic that's going to be uncomfortable, that's going to create friction, why would you even walk down that avenue in regard to introduce that to create that friction?
Right.
Let's talk about those things that's impacting both of us.
Right.
And maybe we can come together, and come up with a resolution to it.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, and when you were talking about some of the things and during your presentation, and we had private talks too, but when it comes down to understanding and realizing some of the things you've been going through and taking a look back, it took these past 2 years for me to realize the depression I had gone through over several times. And what people got to realize that really there's a scale of depression you can go through. There's the hey, or the I'm just not feeling well.
Yeah.
But to sit back and be able to realize it and like, okay, I can say I'm fortunate because even though I may go through those moments, I know what buttons that's being pushed, and I know how to take a step back and say, you know what, let me just find a safe space to deal with what I'm going through, instead of forcing it out and throwing it on somebody else, and then now I have my crutch. See, I'm depressed. That's why I did what I did.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm able to, put myself in a position that makes me a little better. I've seen that with you, like I said, when you were going through the presentation, even when the nervousness came up. But the thing is, it's so funny because, and this turned into a real one-to-one conversation. I prefer to, I think, fall somewhere between what you do and what I feel comfortable with in regards to doing presentation.
Mhm.
I have to be really comfortable with my material. I
Yes.
really need to be comfortable in regards to what I'm talking and engaging at, expecting those questions, that come through. But you were the first presenter I've ever seen that actually you had just paper and notes. And you were like, where am I? Okay, yeah, I covered that. Yeah, okay, here we go. But you were comfortable with it. You wasn't really concerned in regards to, okay, how are people looking at me? And even beforehand, I'm sure you had enough time to prepare yourself for it. It's like,
Yeah.
I need to memorize every single slide and every single percent. And it's like, no, let me speak from here.
Yep.
And that's what I enjoyed about you.
Yeah, man, I can't do it. I'm not made any other way, man. That's all I could do. And my wife wants me to memorize it, but I tell you, man, every time I try to memorize something and say it, like I get gassy, dude. Like I get so nervous. But let me go back to something you said that was really smart. Especially for fathers, for dads, that those buttons that get pushed and us being able to take a step back. I mean, I think about there was a shooting here with a police officer in Patrick Leoa. A Grand Rapids police officer shot him, and if he would have been able to take a step back from that situation and not shot that man, I mean, how many times we hear police shootings of Black individuals that if they would have just stepped back,
right?
And said, I mean, our kids know how to trigger us. Our kids, we need as dads to know de-escalation in terms of our emotions. We need to know our triggers so that when somebody's trying to use them, we can take a step back and say, nah, that's not going to happen this time. And then also knowing, like you said, some of the things we go to, like for me, just like junk food is my major thing. If I drank alcohol, that would be a huge struggle for me, but I don't. I'm thankful I didn't get into that because I know that would be a huge issue for me. So I go to Oreo cookies and I go to chocolate cake, but anywhere from being the dad at home who maybe is a single dad or they just got married or whatever, that wife's gonna know how to push your buttons. We really need to, in our heads and in our journals even, practice this idea of taking a step back and not letting cooler heads prevail.
Right.
Because the result of that, as we saw with like Patrick Leoa or a lot of these other deaths that they're so visual on the TV, like that's the tragedy, right? And we don't want anybody to have to deal with that, and it happens at homes too all the time.
Right.
But there's not so, that we all don't walk around with the cameras on our chest.
Yeah, we really don't, but we have our phones, but that's always second thought. We're thinking about safety first.
Yeah, and if we did have a camera, honestly, I'd be quite embarrassed of myself many times where I've made poor choices and I've reacted as opposed to taking that step back.
Right.
So, and I think being aware of what we fear, when you don't have interaction with, I think when Americans, came to the United States and they were treating the Native Americans poorly, that was out of fear. They didn't understand it. Right. And, I think a big chunk of the way that the white man treated slaves was out of fear. They didn't understand the African Americans, and they wanted to press them down because they didn't understand. They didn't get into their community. They didn't understand the ways. They didn't understand. They wanted to keep the separation because they were scared. And I think that happens with our LGBT community. And I think it happens with parents. I think that happens with kids. If you got teenagers and you're not scared,
Yeah,
I know I'm scared.
It's a new generation, and it's funny because they're so technically advanced at their age than what we were at their age. You know,
We do stupid stuff when we're scared, man. We do stupid stuff when we're scared.
yeah,
And we got to learn a little bit more about our kids. We need to learn more about our wives and our baby's, parent, your mom or dad or whatever. And the families are getting more and more complicated. The different fathers involved, different mothers, and it's hard, but it's worth it. It's worth the work. It's worth investing in getting to understand these differences that we all have to deal with, because it's complicated. I don't know your story, John, too much, but I know it's probably complicated. And let me tell you, mine is.
All right. Well, hey, part of life is to be complicated sometimes. There's nothing really ever simple, but having conversations like this helps to bridge that gap and bring about, some understanding.
But it's the complication that I think that appeals to me so much about you, is that complication, is that tension that you've grown up through in your life that has made you who you are today. And it's and built you up to be who you are today. And it's the conflict and it's the stress and it's the tension you're experiencing in your life right now that's going to make you into that wonderful grandfatherhood, or that next generation of you that's coming. And you want that next generation of John that's coming to look back at you and say, man, I'm proud of you for making this decision about how you reacted to that.
Well, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate that. But yeah, I do see it, and it's funny that it comes at a later age.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I think I know where I want to be, and my thought process, is different. But I guess we have to go through those situations to come to that point where, yes, there's better understanding.
Absolutely.
We only got a few minutes left, so I was wondering. I had a chance to go on your website.
All right.
www.broken-people.org.
Well done. Nailed it.
It's set up real nice. What's the purpose of the website?
Yeah. Well, it's not to make money, because we don't sell anything on there.
Right.
When you go to the website, www.broken-people.org, there's just two choices. I'm not okay, or I feel broken, and someone I care about feels broken. I wanted to make it stupid simple for somebody when they feel broken, they run across my page, they can go to that. If you feel broken, you can click on that, and then it asks you a bunch of questions. Like, are you feeling this way? And then if you click on that, it links you to a bunch of resources, music videos, because I think music is huge in terms of helping to cope with really distressful thoughts. Articles, videos, instructional videos, funny things just to get you distracted. The other click on, so if somebody I care about is broken, like, how do you help somebody without enabling them or being a crutch for them or being unhealthy supportive, and I create resources. I put resources there, like the Trevor Foundation, that help people with that have a loved one that's in the LGBT community, or the Urban League with all these great resources that are out there for African Americans, that are totally underrepresented in terms of therapists and all of that. There's a lot of resources on there. NAMI is doing some great things. I got a huge section in there for NAMI connections and how to get the free resources that NAMI offers you, which is amazing. And then Broken People are free resources as well. Because if I can't help you, I want to be able to point you somewhere I can.
Right.
And a lot of the resources that I found helpful for me when I'm in distress are just these distractions, these healthy distractions, to help me get through that moment of storm to a place of clarity where I can begin to make decisions that will help me be healthier during the next storm. And I've just tried to put all those resources on my page, just to help, just to love people and people that feel broken like me,
Right. Now I have one last question. It's a short question, but it might take you a moment to think about it. But
$1 million question, bring it.
$1 million question. Now, as you say, you've been through your struggle. You were able to work within the system as being a victim per se.
Okay.
And you were able to see some of the good, some of the bad, some of the wrong, some of the rights. But in regards to the mental health system, and there's probably about 1 million changes you would probably want to make. But if there was one, could you give us one change you would like to make to, as you can see, either there's fault in the system or what can make it better or they can improve on?
Yeah, man, you know where I'm going with this because you were in the presentation. So I'll use a story to demonstrate it, and then I'll tell you what that tool is. In 2016, there was a spaceship launched into space. It was meant to orbit Mars, right?
Yeah.
And Lockheed Martin built this ship. They programmed it to read and function using the metric system. And they launched it into space. NASA was, unfortunately, when they were sending data up to this orbiter, this $6 million orbiter, was using the imperial system, which is inches versus centimeters, like, so when they try to get this orbiter to do what it was supposed to do and orbit Mars, NASA sends stuff like pounds per inch, into the system, whereas the orbiter is thinking in terms of the metric system of, I don't know, liters per whatever, kilograms. And because they weren't speaking the same language, the ship ended up crashing into Mars and NASA blowing $6 million. And what I think that applies to mental health, what I think that applies to fatherhood, what I think it applies to you and me, John, is we need to be speaking the same language as the people that can help us. And in my book, I introduced this concept of a mental health scale. It's a universal mental health scale. If your listeners would just go on right now and just Google mental health scales, and you look at all the variety of scales that you run across when you Google it, it's gonna, it'll make you crazy. If you don't have a mental illness yet, do that, and then you have a mental illness. No, I'm just kidding. But there's no universal way for me to talk to a therapist. There's no universal way for me to talk to police officers or my family or loved ones. And that's what I created, not for my book, but just to survive. I was sharing with the police academy this last weekend. It was like on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible and 10 being great. What does a 1 stand for? And one of the officers said it stands for hopeless. And I said, is hopeless as bad as it gets? Because as an officer approaching a situation, as a first responder, medic, whatever, wouldn't you want to know if that person was holding a gun and they were planning on killing themselves? Because there's a big gap between I'm hopeless and I want to die. Right. Because when you're at that place, you don't care who you take with you. Like, I don't think about my kids. I don't think about, and it's sad, but I don't think about those things. All I'm thinking about is the fire that's in front of me, and that's my emotions. And I think, our therapists and our doctors and friends like you and I, if we could speak the same language and have a scale that says, that simply communicates, I'm struggling, and that everybody could understand it. Like, I can tell you right now, if I told you I was a -2 right now, tell me what you think that means.
Oh, you're feeling a little bad.
A little bad, dude. You've read the chapter, and we've talked like twice or 3 times, but you know this. My scale goes from -10 to 10. There's a couple things on there called the crisis number and a manic number. Those are indications that clearly communicate you're in crisis. I won't get too much into it because it'll take me another hour. I got a video coming out I just shot on Monday explaining into it, but it's this thing, in my opinion, is stupid proof. It wasn't made by the doctors who look at people with mental illness and say, we're going to put this number on this, or we're going to put this emoji to indicate how you're struggling. No, this is an insider's toolkit for mending broken people. This is my story, how I found a way to communicate from the inside, somebody that gets it, that experiences all that whole spectrum of emotions in a practical and no nonsense way of saying, hey, this is how I feel. And by saying one thing, you immediately know where I'm at, whether I'm in crisis and need to go to the hospital, or if I am I'm having a great day and you need to celebrate with me, because we don't celebrate enough. There's not enough recognition of good emotions on a lot of those scales. And by golly, And yes, I said, by golly, we need to celebrate feeling good, especially dads, because we kick our butts. We beat ourselves up and down the street all the time. We need to celebrate feeling well, and we need to celebrate it in a healthy way.
Exactly. Totally agree with you.
So a mental health scale, man, that's I think that would be huge. It may not be the perfect tool, but it's what I'm working on. It's what I believe in.
Well, we're probably going to have to do a couple more of these because there's a few things that you did bring up, and the conversation should be invigorating in the formal. Who knows? I might have to get ratings one day. No.
Well, let's do it together next time in the same room. We'll sit side by side and do it together. That's how I want to do it.
There you go. And that sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
For those of you who had a chance to see this, remember www.broken-people.org, the website. Want to check it out. The book, they can get it on Amazon, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Broken Like Me. That's my copy right here. Yeah.
This is my copy.
Trying to get it in there.
It's invisible.
Right. Broken Like Me, an insider's toolkit for many broken people. Like I said, to be able to take a look and take a walk in regards to what Joseph went through, the steps he took, and the tools that he presents to help you along your way.
Yeah.
Really great, and I can't wait to really finish it without utilizing the tools. But it was great. Hey, Joseph, my friend, my buddy. Like I said, from the first day, it's been a pleasure getting to know who you are, having this relationship. Much success. Can't wait for the video that you mentioned.
Yep.
But much success in regards to what you do. Continue encouragement in what you go through every single day.
Sure. Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
I just want, if you're listening to this right now, please just take a breath. I want you to go below, click on 5 stars, and send John some love, because he's earned it. He's doing this, and it's a great thing. And just take a second to do it. It means a lot. So I know this to be true.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Been John Miles, Father of Connections, one-to-one conversations. Hey, see you next time. Enjoy your day. Stay well.